Alright, another project for the day. Down here in my basement workshop, I've been trying to figure out a way to make better use of this space next to my furnace, behind the water heater, next to my metalworking sub bench with my grinder and wire brush and three-way sheet metal machine. Next to this big tool case. I had stored in here my hydraulic press and my one of my portable shop vacs, and also this toolbox, which has seen better days, but it stores a lot of odds and ends. And I have beaucoup cans of spray paint and other things in cans, lots of stuff like this that I wanted to get off the floor, out of the way, and I decided to see if I could fit it into that space in some efficient manner. So rule number one, it has to be up off the floor. It has to be rollable, so I can reposition it so I can get at these things easily. Has to fit in without hitting the exhaust duct on my furnace. And it needs not to extend out any further than the front of this tool bench, which it did anyway with the toolbox and things sitting on that cinder block. I need to still be able to get reasonable access to to this bench without it being boxed in too much. So I didn't want anything with sides on it that would get here. So my idea was to have sort of a wheeled cart with a plywood top, onto which would sit the tool bench, and then on the back of it would come a frame made out of 2x4s vertically, going most of the way up to the ductwork up here, and fitting in between here and here, and then on that have some horizontal frame slats onto which would hang these big wire mesh storage bins, which can be lifted off of support rails. So I bought I bought these. I bought a box or a carton of 10 of these things. And what these are is they're a U-line product. They're a wire mesh bin, 15 by 8 by 7 inches, box of 10. It's the S-24001, and then those hang on a rail H-4681. It's a 48-inch long, 3-inch single rail. I ordered 3 of them, and they're over here. These are just painted stamped steel with various mounting options. And the idea is that you mount this on a wall where my hand is, and then you have this protruding sheet metal bracket onto which those bins slip on, and they can be lifted off easily. So the idea is I'll just cut those to length and hook these guys onto them. So the workbench will be down here, and then above it, roughly in this position, will be 2 of these bins side by side. Then up above 2 more, then up here 2 more, and that'll just about occupy that space, but yet still easily be pulled out of here if I need to get back at these things. And if I need to have more width here, I can either pull the whole assembly out, or I can lift a couple of bins off their rails to have a little more width if I'm grinding something long that has to extend over in here. So I think it'll be pretty flexible, not too expensive. I'm using some scrap plywood and 2x4 that I already have, but I realized I was running low on 1/2-inch plywood, so I picked up a 4x4 sheet at Home Depot. This is really some cheap crap. It seemed in the store to have about as much rigidity as a similarly sized sheet of tin, but it'll work for my needs. And then to have nice straight 2x4s for the vertical posts, I got two 8-foot prime 2x4s, so no huge knots on them, or minimal huge knotting, and pretty straight, no significant warping. And then on top of that, that'll make the two verticals, and then I'll use another 2x4 I had from making this project, and that'll be cut up for a couple reinforcements, and also for the sideways braces, which will help support these things here. As usual, I just did a thinking out loud rough pencil sketch. So I envisioned two 2x4 frame members with the piece of plywood, 1/2-inch plywood, sitting on top of those. And it doesn't need to hold much, just that one toolbox, and also just to provide spacing. But then I thought, well, I think there will be enough spare 2x4 that I can put at least one cross piece frame member under here. Maybe not at the front, maybe in the middle, more likely have it down in the rear, probably back here, to provide a base separator for the two verticals. Then you've got the two verticals, then you've got the three plywood cross braces which anchor the metal rails, and then there will be a little stub of 2x4 up here just to provide, because there's not going to be a ton of weight going down on these, but I want to have more than just a couple of screws into these pieces to help hold the weight. And so screw on a couple of other little pieces of 2x4 on the side of the long pieces, and those will actually rest on the top of these frame rails. And then have a piece of plywood cut out as an angle bracket to keep it from trying to do this, and just screw that in with deck screws basically. And do the same on the other side. Probably put a hand grip of some sort on the front edge of this just to give something to grab and pull it out. Casters on the bottom. And it should be pretty easy to make. Hopefully I can get it all done today. I worked out the dimensions of the 2x4 frame and the piece of plywood that'll sit on top of it. I did forget to mark where the hand grip will go. And then there's an 8-inch extension that goes off past the frame, and I want to support that a little bit, probably with some angled pieces of wood or something. It's only going to be 1/2-inch plywood. It's not going to hold much weight, but I still prefer to reinforce it slightly. So that'll hold the width of the toolbox from here to here, and it will fit in the space I've got on the floor without hitting anything else, although it has to be narrower up high to clear the flue or the furnace exhaust. Hence the 19.5-inch maximum width from there on up. And I've worked out the total dimensions of my long 2x4s at 69 inches. I've got the Kennedy tool case sitting 21 inches proud of the top of the platform, and then the wire frame row 1, 15 inches from the bottom of that to the next one, row 2, 15 inches to the next one, row 3, and then 14 inches to the top, which will have another reinforcing plate, but there won't be any metal hanger on it. It'll just be there for cosmetics and in case I decide to relocate these things. Everything's going to be put together with screws, so I can undo the screws and move the plates up and down as required. That's the idea anyway. And then I'm going to have these reinforcing plates on the corner to keep the whole assembly from trying to tip forward and putting too much stress on those screws. So I've worked out a 10 by 10 bracket with a cutoff angle on it, and figured out how big a piece of scrap wood I need to cut 2 of those out. So time to get busy with the saws, I think. Alright, I got the 2 angle brackets. I've got the 4 cross pieces that the rails will go on. I got the base, the platform. I've got it marked where the tool case should optimally go, and just for the hell of it I wrote Kennedy on there because it's a Kennedy tool case. I have my 2 verticals. I have 2 pieces of the frame there, 2 more pieces of the frame, and the auxiliary blocks all cut on my miter saw. So now it should be just assembly. Okay, there's the frame just set up for verifying dimensions, and those 2 pieces on it. I still have to notch out the corner of this guy. Best to do that on the bandsaw. Alright, I've cut a handhold in here so I can reach through here and pull to roll it out. If I'd had more depth to play with, I could have made the handhold as I originally intended to, with a cutout in the platform, just to go down and pull that way. Would have been slightly better, but I needed to have the frame out this far, and the toolbox goes from here to here, or to about here, so there really wasn't any unobstructed area to do a top entry for my hand. And there's how the platform's going to go on there with its overhang. And I just need to trying to decide which is the best way to do it. I think it may be easiest to... No, I think I'll build this part first and then put the verticals on it. Okay, there's the platform part. Got it screwed into the frame all the way around. I've got the side plates screwed onto the side frames, both sides. I'm using different length screws there because they have to also go into this part of the frame, so those are different color. Just 1 screw here and 1 down there. Usually just 3 screws per side, but here I've got 4 because of the handhold being in the middle. And I've got these 2 filler pieces in here, just held in with 1 short one right now. The real screws will go in when I put the big 2x4s here, which I guess is the next step. Okay, 2 screws down through here, and then, or 4 screws there, and then 4 more through these 2 pieces, and the same thing on the other side. Alright, the woodwork part is done essentially. I have the 3 cross braces. The top one's just for decoration and just, again, to hold the top together and have it, give it some sort of visual ending. And always allow for the fact that I can always move these guys up and down on the verticals if I decide I want the shelf spacing to be different. Now I have to put on the metal brackets or rails, but I need to drill more holes in them because the natural holes they come in or come with are in all sorts of weird places. and won't be ideal for what I'm doing here. Okay, we've got those 3 things on there now. Decided to go with 3 screws per each. I utilized holes where they exist or slots and drilled additional ones. That one there had a hole. Well, it wasn't in the center, but I figured it didn't really need to be. These are very stiff pieces, so it's got 3 screws in it. Okay, got the casters on the bottom. All 4 swiveling types. Alright, it's complete. I can't get far enough away to get the whole thing in the picture. I did add this piece of wood down here that's screwed in from the side frame and into the platform, just to help add a little strength so that doesn't sag there. And it's aligned with where the weight will be, where the tool case is. So we got this, and it goes up. It's got about a hand's width between the top of it and the duct. It rolls around. It does want to tip backwards when there's no weight on it. So it just kind of goes into that space there, just like it was planned. Okay, the tool case on there makes it untippy. So let's get the bins on there. Okay, project complete. Got the tool case there, have 6 wire mesh bins. Apparently they're supposed to tip out a little bit. I think perhaps if you bolt these to a wall, then they would be a little more level. Right now there's nothing supporting the back side. I might do something to remedy that. I might put on a little wooden block in that position to keep them from tipping quite as much. You know, make them a little more level. But I don't think it's strictly necessary. It's not going to fall off or anything. So each of these bins can be lifted off individually, but because they're wire mesh, you can look in the sides and see easily what's in there, even if it's not in the front. I have a few more things I might stick in there, but for the moment that's what I've got. And even with all that stuff on there, it still rolls pretty easily. And it definitely doesn't come too close to the flue pipe there. Actually, I think I might scooch this a little bit to the right. I think that's a little better. Once again, if I have to work on something on the grinder that sticks over, I can just remove 1 or 2 of these bins or wheel the whole thing out of the way. Oh, I forgot to demonstrate that the lid of the toolbox does open. I didn't leave a lot of wasted space, maybe an inch or so of clearance. It would be closer to 1.5 inches, almost 2 inches, if the bins didn't sag down. But it's certainly more than enough to get in here, so I think I'll leave it alone.